control. Her gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Paranormal Portal, Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and let's see, what is it? It's Tuesday night. I hope you had a good Tuesday. I had a busy day, but a lot of things got done. Just as a kind of an update for you all, and you are among the first to know about it. Apparently, there's somebody experiencing some pretty bizarre and wild haunting experiences, and yours truly and a select few other people will be going to investigate. I'm not sure if it's going to be a live stream investigation or not, but it'll be recorded at an event, and we will be going to check it out in the very near future. But just talked with the person who is experiencing all the activity today, and it sounds pretty intense. I don't think it's a negative haunting. I don't. I just think that there's some issues at play, and I think it's perhaps some confusion, some not understanding, and but without revealing too much of it at this point, as I have not set foot on the property yet. I just had a discussion with the person experiencing and her family, and she shared a lot of stories with me and things that they've been through, and it's going to be hopefully a lot of fun. Hopefully it'll be a great experience. I hope we're able to help those people most of all, because that's got to be frightening. It's got to be incredibly intimidating to not be sure what the hell is going on. So we're going to get into that, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm really excited to at some point bring that to you, whether it's live as it's happening or after the fact. We'll see how it all works out. But in any case, we are going to help people first, though. This is all about helping them first. So if I can't stream it live, you guys will have to understand that this isn't a show event in and of itself. It's people are having trouble and need some help. So but I just wanted to announce that to you because, of course, I'm really looking forward to getting there and seeing what we can do to be of assistance and to possibly record some amazing stuff. So we will let you know more as this all develops, but pretty exciting stuff. Anyway, hope you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for being here. As always, this is the Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I am Brent Thomas, and we are, I guess, about to get into the show, but 720-923-0500. If you want to call and be a part of the show, please feel free. Again, 720-923-0500. But I hope you're all ready, because it's time for bed. All right, and yeah, Chris Jarvis, I was going to announce that now, but thank you so much for announcing that in chat. So for those of us that are in the paranormal community, I think there's one name that continually comes up as somebody who's really done some amazing work in the field and has put on a great show for many years, which has brought and given voice to a lot of people that have had some pretty intense, incredible experiences. But unfortunately, it's kind of a dark day. It's really looking tough. Apparently, Mr. Brenton Sawn is in the hospital currently. suffering from, and now I'm only hearing this through the internet. So if this report is at all in error, I sincerely apologize. But my intent is only to, ask everybody to send your prayers to the Solon family, and for them, they're going through. But apparently, Brenton is really struggling right now. He's got a lot of health issues going on, and it's not looking real great. But please send your love, your prayers, your support, your energy to Brenton Sohn and his family. It's got to be a tough thing that they're facing. And I think that a public outcry of love and support would really mean a lot. So if you're not familiar with the show, you can find it on YouTube, Brenton Sohn Mysteries to Search, I think is what it's called. And I've listened to it a number of times. And while I was never always watching the show, I always thought he did a good job, and you could tell his heart was in it. And so for whatever it's worth, take a moment, please. Send a prayer his way for he and his family as they're struggling with this potentially terrifying event, and wish them your best. At least, if all we can do is just send our love and support and wish him a wonderful journey back home, then so be it. But if there's hope that he can rebound, then even better. But please do that. I don't know him at all on a personal level, but I know that he spent many years doing his show, and I think that he did it because it was something he loved doing. So take a moment, please, and do that for him and his family. I have already and will continue to. But I know this kind of sombering news, and I guess it's as hard as that is to hear. I guess it's the one journey we're all going to take eventually, but it doesn't make it any easier. The fact that we're all going to do it doesn't make it easy. So my best wishes, of course, from myself, Don, and the rest of us here at the Paranormal Portal, to the Sohn family and all of those over at Brenton Sohn Mysteries to Search. Sending you guys a lot of love, and hope everything can work out somehow. But all right, guys, going to get to it here. Let's see what's going on. We got 38 of you here. Who's here? Let's see who's here first of all. First of all, we've got a bunch of people here. You guys have really piled into the end of the door, and I really appreciate that. I remember when I first started doing these live streams, especially the bedtime stories, when people weren't really used to them being out there. Our numbers have really grown incredibly in the last several months, but it just amazes me how many people are ready to come in as soon as they turn on the lights. It's just such an honor, and it's so humbling. But who's here now? 5 Hazel just came in just a second ago. Beth Fierce is here. Big Rob, 300,080. Black Tree is here. Julia. Brian Gasca. Cajun Jules. Cameron F., Chris Jarvis, Digger Dog, DJ Big Red, Elaine Clifford, Isaac Areola, Justin Goodearth, Cade Moya is here, Linda is here, Mogi on Monster is here, Nessie Monster is here, lots of monsters here, Peter Turk is here, Rick AAK, Purple Hobbit is in here, and the Dude is here, as well as our very own Duke. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. Duke, of course, is the host of World Bigfoot Radio. If you're looking for some inside scoop on the Bigfoot community and what's going on there, definitely check out World Bigfoot Radio. So, all right, guys, we got some stories lined up to keep you thoroughly entertained for the next 45 minutes or so. So let's see where we can get onto this journey now. Unless there's any questions. Any questions? Anybody? No? Okay. All right. Show of hands. Everybody ready? Like I can see you. I don't know. I can be an absolute idiot sometimes, but I have fun doing it. So I hope you have fun listening to it. So anyway, here's the first one's from Tennessee. Got to get all hydrated before I start reading here. Okay, this is another one that starts out like it's in the middle of a narrative. Like, I don't know, this person obviously had submitted another story, another encounter story. No, maybe not. Let's just read it. It says, while Abigail is by far the most frequent and personal favorite of my unseen visitors, I do have two more, three if you count the cat. The one we call Old Woman pretty much stays in the kitchen, living room, and concerns herself with the condition of the house. The other one we call the Ancient One, and he concerns himself with his own thoughts. Oh yeah, the cat. Well, she acts like a cat. Even though I haven't actually seen any of these except for Abigail, I have, however, heard them and felt their presence. Their appearance, emotions, and what little communication I get from them come through my wife. My wife is a non-practicing empathic medium whose ability I not only trust, but I rely on. The Ancient One only comes around a couple of times a year. He or it is a very old spirit, so old that it has forgotten who or what he was. He is slow-moving and consumed with his own thoughts, and it may take him a few days to wander through. Time for him has no meaning, like we feel that he is aware of us but considers us insignificant, as we would a passerby on the street. And when he comes through, there is a feeling, neither good nor evil, but of not being alone. And when he does come through, we bid him a safe journey and try not to interrupt his thoughts. The old woman, we suspect, comes from around the turn of the last century. The wife sees her as being 60 or 70, hair up in a bun, and her dress not quite floor length. And she's not very talkative, but when she does, it is straight and to the point. Like I've said, she concerns herself with the way the house looks and gets upset when things get a little messy. She doesn't get upset with me because I'm the man of the house, and in her time of housework was the woman's work, but her and Mrs. Frauen have had words. I usually hear her in the kitchen living room while moving around and rattling the dishes when I'm on the computer or after I've gone to bed. And I also notice the shadows reflecting off the wall in the kitchen, like what would be made if a person passed in front of a light. I leave the range light on to act as a night light, and I see her there. The other night at about 1 a.m., I was on the computer and I heard a loud crash in the kitchen. My first thought was that the darn cat, the live one of mine, had knocked something off of a shelf, and I rushed to the living room to see what she had destroyed, to find several items that had been on the counter lying on the floor. I looked around to see where she was hiding, and when I remembered that the cat was turned outside when the wife left for work, I just assumed the old woman was in a tiff. I would tell you about my wife's experiences with the old woman, but those are her experiences to tell, not mine. Oh yeah, the cat. Well, she acts like a cat. That's fitting, I guess. That suits it to act like a cat. The dude. What's going on? I just lost my cat. Oh, I'm sorry, the dude. A couple of weeks ago, his name was Cheddar. He will always be my buddy. Yeah, it's amazing. Those little fuzzy animals, they just get right in our hearts, and they all of their quirks and idiosyncrasies and they can be an absolute pain in the butt, but you just love the hell out of them. And I'm sorry for your loss, brother. I've unfortunately lost a few pets through the years, and it's not easy, but I don't know. I bet Cheddar's probably still hanging around, brother. And maybe if you pay attention, you'll find that some things happen that always happened when Cheddar was alive. They seem to stick around. I've had experiences with, I've had experiences with my old German Shepherd. I had an old German Shepherd. Her name was Zena, and she was a wonderful dog. Long story short, when I got her, pretty sure she was pretty abused, and she was 1 year old when I got her. She'd never really been loved or pet or I think she was just pretty brutalized for a number of months when I got her. But after she finally warmed up to me, after I brought her home, it was like 3 days. She wouldn't let me touch her. Anytime I got near her, she'd hit the floor, like she was going to get beat. It was really, really, really tragic. But then finally she started letting me touch her, and then she'd come up and lay down next to me and let me pet her, and I'd sit on the floor to make it accessible. And then when she got comfortable, she did the whole puppy thing. And I think maybe she never had the opportunity to be a puppy before. And this was the first time that she felt safe enough to be a puppy and to be develop normally. And my God, she chewed up about 15 of my shoes, and she hadn't been potty trained. She'd never been on a leash. It was a long road of teaching. But once she kind of understood her role and I understood my role with her, it was like she was amazing. She was more a human being than an animal. And then I know that many of you pet lovers will understand that. I've had many pets. Some of them have been amazing pets, but there's a few that I've had through the years that were so much more. There was so much more light in them than just being a normal pet. They just shine so brightly. And it was like their role was more than just to be something furry. And she was definitely one of those. And she got older, and it got harder and harder. But I probably should have put her down being, but she always had that sparkle in her eye, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it because she never lost that puppy sparkle that she had finally earned being with me. And then finally one day she had just passed. She finally passed. She was 14 and a half when she passed, and it was a real heartbreaker. It was a very, very sad thing, but at the same time it was also a relief because she was no longer in so much pain because she had the hip dysplasia, and it was really, really double tough. But after she passed, she showed up in some dreams and has still up to about a year and a half or 2 years ago was the last one that I can remember having. But she came and I pet her, and I knew she was gone, but she was there. And it was this really amazing moment, and I felt it was real. I felt like she really was visiting me. I don't know that she's here all the time. She was inseparable from my oldest son, so I figure if she is wandering around down here, it's probably with him. But she looked at me like she had to go. And I was like, no, I don't want you to go. I want you to stay here. And I remember her walking away and then looking back, and I was like, oh my God, she's leaving. I don't want her to go again. I can't do this again. And I remember waking myself up, yelling her name, like, just yelling. And, then I woke up, of course, and there's tears in my eyes and stuff, but it's just they leave such a deep footprint in our hearts. So, if you don't love pets, then you probably don't understand what I'm talking about. But if you do, if you're a pet lover and you've had one of those amazingly special pets, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, very cool. But I am sorry for your loss, brother. That's really hard, and it takes a long time to grow through that or to heal through it. But all right, so let's see what's going on here. The next one is from Tennessee. Let's go to Tennessee and see what's going on. This one has to do with a grocery store. So, what the hell? Let me see. Nope. Okay, it just says, all right. All right, so it says, no, it did do that, didn't it? The owners at the store that I worked at didn't see eye to eye with me with some things, and I left in a tiff. And after 6 months cool down and a few casual conversations, I returned to work there in roughly March of this year, this year was 2008, so it's a long time ago. So far, I haven't had any more encounters with Susie, the ghost, but learned that she made her presence known to the new owner's son on 2 separate occasions. The new owner consists of a man, his wife, and their son, whom I shall call Henry. And Henry acts as store manager, so he carries the title of boss. And after learning that he had a few experiences in the store, I asked him to tell me what had happened, and reluctantly, he told me his story. It seems that both incidents happened on a Sunday morning. The store doesn't open until noon on Sunday, and whoever cuts meat that day has to go in a few hours early in order to have the case filled by dinner time. One Sunday morning, as Henry was grinding hamburger, he said he heard the stockroom door slam, as if someone had opened it wide and let it slam. And he said he thought nothing of it, just assumed a draft had caused it, and finished grinding the burger, and he took one tray of burger and placed it in the case, and as started to go back to get the second tray, the stockroom door opened. He said he stood there looking at the door, standing halfway open, knowing that it shouldn't be doing that. He said that it stayed in that open position for 15 or 20 seconds, and then it slowly closed. And he said it really got him thinking when it dawned on him that the door was spring-loaded and that he had all the outside doors locked, thus making a draft impossible. His other episode happened on a Sunday morning too, except this time he had a witness to the event. A friend of his had come by and was keeping him company as he filled the meat case, and they were talking when they heard the sound of someone walking in the store. His friend commented that he thought that they were the only ones there, and when Henry told him that they were. His friend said that he heard walking in the store. Both agreed they heard somebody, and so they went to investigate, and when they got to the front of the store, they heard someone walking down the first aisle, and every few steps there was a knock on the wall. And this kept up to what seemed like the entire length of the store. They searched the entire store and came up empty-handed. Both of them were mystified because they knew they heard somebody, but they were the only ones there. Can I swear that what they had seen and heard were true? No, I can't. I wasn't there. I can swear that something is in that store because I had experienced far worse. Well, there you have it. Even grocery stores, ladies and gentlemen, no place is safe from a haunting. Just saying. Even grocery stores can be haunted. All right, let's go to Michigan. I got family in Michigan who should be listening right now. If they're not, just saying. All right, let's go to Michigan and see what's going on. This is my first post. Hope you like it. Sorry if it's not that great. I'm just not a good storyteller. So it's right off that first sentence. There's just absolutely no expectations for everything else that's lying after this. It's like, oh, God. All right, I can't wait to read this one. So let's see what the narrative is. It says, this story takes place in a house I used to live in. The house itself is over 100 years old, and as far as I know, nothing bad has ever happened there. It had belonged to my grandma before she died, and it was a little while after she died, my dad and I moved in. I never liked being in that house alone, even during the day, just because I just had this feeling of someone else being around me that I couldn't see. I'd have to turn the TV on or the radio just to make me feel more comfortable. It was most intense in one area of my room, and I would avoid going there if I could. My room was kind of an upside-down L shape with the bottom part connecting to the living room and the other to the bathroom. And it was where the L came together that I hated being. And it was there that I saw the shadow. I was getting home from school one day and was the only one home. My bedroom door was the first door on the right, and when entering the living room, you could see all the way to the end. And as I was entering the living room, out of the corner of my eye, I could see a shadow. I would say about 5 feet tall and in the shape of a person. It was at the far end of the room, and then it turned and ran around the corner towards the bathroom. I stopped and looked at the corner for a second and then just went back to my normal routine. I wasn't afraid of it. Actually, I thought I was just seeing things and really didn't think too much about it. Like added, Paranormal Portal fam. Thank you, Heather. I'm sorry. I'm just seeing a lot of orange over here, so I had to go see what was going on. So about a month later, I saw it again as I was getting home from school. It again turned the corner and ran away. This time I started to think maybe my eyes weren't playing tricks on me, and maybe I really did see something. I knew it couldn't have been a reflection off the window because I had the curtains covering the lower half of the windows, and the shadow touched the floor. The thought of it being in my room didn't really scare me because I figured whoever it was didn't want to hurt me. It was just looking at me. I only saw the shadow one more time after that. Again, when it thought I saw it, it ran away. And I still had that watched feeling when I was alone in the house, but it didn't bother me as much as before. I never told anyone else about it because I thought they just wouldn't believe me anyway. We moved out of that house a couple of years later when my dad remarried, and we still own the house because it's on my uncle's property, so I still walk past it when we visit my uncle, and he lives next door. And I still get that feeling of someone watching me from the windows when I walk by. And I'll admit that I do get a little scared by that just because I'm afraid that if I look at the window, I might see something and won't want to go back in the house. That might sound weird since I lived in that house with it, but I just can't help thinking that. That was the only experience I had in that house, but I found out recently that other family members have had things happen to them in that house. If you'd like to hear about them, let me know. But thanks for reading. Well, I think this person did just fine. I don't know why they're so critical. Self-deprecation, I tell you. You did great. Keep them coming. Always keep them coming. And if you got a story out there, you're listening to the show and you're like, ooh, I should tell them about this story. Well, you can do that. You can do that by picking up the phone and calling 720-923-07 0500. Again, 720-923-0500. Or you can email it to me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com if you'd rather not be on the show yourself. But I like it when you guys come on the show, because then I can ask you questions. Now, if you've also got an experience, or you feel like you've got a few experiences that you'd like to talk about, then let me know, because we can have you on and you can be a guest on my podcast, the Paranormal Portal podcast, and we can do an interview and have you on. You can share your stories, and the beauty of those is that it gives me a chance to ask questions and maybe bring out more details that you're not thinking about right off the top. But we've done a few of them now. People have asked to be on the show, and it's been great. I've had some great experiences, great interviews and stuff. So if you want to do that, just let me know. Reach out via email and I'll get in touch with you, and we'll figure out when to record it, and it can be one of the podcasts. Now, if you're not familiar with the podcast, it's everywhere there is podcasts: Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, etc., etc. You can go on those platforms and look for the Paranormal Portal. The beauty of the podcasts are that you don't really need to have an active connection. All you need, you do to download the show. So if you're like at home and you know you got a road trip ahead of you, that you're going to be away from internet for a while, and you're looking for something to listen to, download our show and take it with you. You can play it back later through your phone into your into your car stereo or whatever. So just some thoughts, but I've been getting a lot of great responses to that. So I really appreciate all the love we've been experiencing through the podcast, and thank you all, if those are you people that are in the chat now or just sitting there listening. All right, so back to the spooky stuff. Let's see where we're going now. We're going California on such a winter's day. It's a winter's day here, ladies and gentlemen. 3 inches of snow here. Just like, poof, there's snow. Man, I'm telling you, everything about the weather this year is just brutalizing me. I'm just not ready for it. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to think happy, warm thoughts, but it's cold here. It's just cold. All right, enough of me whining. Here we go, California. This past weekend, as my mother and I were sitting down for breakfast together, my grandmother called to tell us that my Aunt Alice was sick. Apparently, the entity in her house in Lamont, California, had frightened her so severely that it caused her to fall ill. I could only hear my mother's side of the conversation, and that alone gave me the goosebumps. When she ended the conversation, my mom told me that only a few days prior, my Aunt Alicia, had woken up very early in the morning to prepare my Uncle Ray's lunch before he left for work. After he'd left, she sat down on the couch, and immediately she realized that an invisible entity had sat down beside her. Scared to death, she looked over to her side and saw the impression of the entity's form on the couch. And then she could feel its presence, and she immediately became ill. She called my grandmother, who is very religious and attends church daily, to help her contact a priest so he may perform a house blessing. Well, I couldn't believe that there was any paranormal activity in my family. I was a mix of emotions, sad for my aunt's health, but also excited at the prospect of ghost hunting in her house. I begged my mom for every detail available, and she said that this wasn't the first paranormal encounter at my aunt's house. They would repeatedly hear a commotion in the kitchen, as if someone was struggling to open the window, climb through it, and stumble onto the floor. They never found evidence of anyone breaking in. And not long ago, my aunt threw a family party, and everyone was up and dancing to the music when suddenly the stereo shut off. They struggled to fix it, but it was dead. My quick-witted father exclaimed that the entity had probably had enough of hearing the loud music and wanted us to leave. My mom then began to curse it out loud for ruining the party, and they brought in another stereo from the house and plugged it in, and everyone began dancing again. The rhythm immediately turned into the blues again, as the second stereo also stopped working. The third stereo they brought out was also short-lived. And out of the stereos at this point, the party was definitely over. My aunt's son, Michael, was at one time attacked by this entity. As he was lying in bed, it jumped on him, and he struggled with it and managed to fight him off. And I'm an advocate for sleep paralysis, but the fact that he was able to move during this encounter makes me think that it was the real deal and not just sleep paralysis. My father called her later that day to hear about her encounter firsthand. Surprisingly, she denied the latest encounter ever happened. My father said, well, Ray told me that the ground was being excavated to add to the new addition to the house, and that 2 boxes were found. And there was a small box and it contained some rings, which you later pawned, and another large box, fearing it could be a coffin. You both decided not to disturb it and pour the foundation over it. I could hear her on the speakerphone as my father talked, and she denied that story. She acknowledged that the window story and the stereo story, but denied everything else. She agrees that there is an entity lurking around causing minor mischief, but has so far remained harmless for the family. My first instinct was that she was so scared about what had happened that she was in denial. My grandmother couldn't make up a story like that if she had to. I firmly believe there is more to this story than what my aunt says. So, is the aunt being oppressed? Is she being somehow controlled? Just saying. That's pretty creepy. Pouring the foundation over the other box might not have been the best move. It's one of those things. I really do believe that there's probably a solution for every haunting, but the question comes, how much are you willing to invest of your life to getting rid of a haunting? Is it sometimes easier just to walk away? And maybe it is. I think it maybe always is easier, but then you get in a position where you're financially invested in where you are, and you can't just pack a bag and just say, nope, we're done, let's get out. But those kind of situations have got to be incredibly horrifying. But I think that there's an answer that can be found, or there's whatever the case is. It's hard to know if that was indeed a coffin or what. And it's weird that the aunt is denying it when apparently her husband has very openly admitted it. So that's strange. That's very strange. But I would suspect it may be a little more further progressed. All right, let's move along. The next one is Massachusetts. We don't see many out of Massachusetts. Am I missing anything? Everybody good? Everybody doing good? You're right. The dude says some people are just too stubborn to be scared away by a ghost. That's true. There is that too. I mean, and granted, it's kind of emasculating, right? If something appears and it's making you afraid, and it's not about being macho or being strong or whatever, but I mean, there are some powerful dark things out there, and it's okay to say that's, you maybe feel like you can't handle it yourself. In fact, it's better to say that than to try to pretend that you can and end up in deeper trouble. So I think that's the point where you bring people in to take care of it, because if you got a situation that's escalating and it's getting worse, and whatever you do is not making it better, then try bringing in people. I'm not necessarily talking about the run-of-the-mill paranormal investigators, because a lot of times following paranormal investigations, if they're not conducted really carefully, they will absolutely raise the activity level for a period of time afterwards, because I think in some cases it pisses the spirits off. It just irritates the hell out of them that somebody else was in their house looking for them. So I think that there can be a backlash on that if it's not done really carefully. But I do believe that it can be done very carefully and, not raise the activity level too much. But I think it's really important to bring in people that have gifts, that have talents, that, a shamanistic person, or a religious figure that can do blessings on the house, or some other practitioner that can help in a spiritual nature to maybe convince the spirits to back off or to cross over or to leave or whatever needs to be done. But, hauntings can definitely progress in a real bad way if they're not handled the right way. So it's got to be very careful. So this one is Massachusetts again. So a lot of people have been asking when I'll be putting up experiences with my Nana. So here they are. My mom was cleaning the house when she decided to freshen up in my Nana's room, and we still call it that even though she's passed away. So she got the Febreze, but then remembered that she didn't like it, so she put it back in the cabinet and got Lysol. As she was passing by her bedroom door to get it, in the bathroom she froze with fright. Standing right in front of the door was my Nana. My entire mom saw, My entire mom saw was from the waist. Oh, the figure that my mom saw was from the waist up. And she had her curly hair and a red plaid shirt on. My mom was frightened right away, and she ran to the phone crying and called my dad and told him. Well, my dad was shocked right away, but was able to calm her down. Despite what had happened, my mom sent back, got the Febreze, my mom went back. There's a lot of typos here, so I apologize. Went back and got the Febreze and went into her room and freshened it up. Well, if I were her, I would have ran out the door and never looked back. Ha ha. Here is my experience. So the day after one of my best friends, Alex, slept over, I decided to show her my Nana's room. And when I showed her, we only took one step in and heard, "Get out," in a raspy voice by her window, next to her bed. Alex and I looked at each other and asked, "Did you hear that?" Alex shook her head and replied, "Yes. It sounded like someone said, 'Get out.'" I replied, and we ran out and slammed her door, and we ran outside and told my mom, and that's all I can remember. It was last year, the year she passed, and that's when I remembered my Nana hated when I showed people her room or went in it. My dad was joking around and said maybe she was getting dressed and didn't want you seeing her naked. Jeez. Whoa. Well, that's it for now. I'll tell you some more some other time. God bless you all, and thanks for reading. Well, thank you for sharing, of course. That's the big thing. Thank you. All right, so this one's coming from Missouri. Let's see what's going on there. I've been living in my apartment now for about a year, and it will be a year in September 15th, this was written in 2008. Well, it's written in, what? Oh. Okay, so this story is actually written in September 11th, September 11th, 2008. And it says by September, no, it's written in August 11th, 2008. I'm sorry, I'm just doing some weird math stuff in my head. I'm not a math person, so it can take me a while to cipher out numbers here. And it would be a year and September 15th of 2008. The apartment has a lot of history, and I still have some more research to do. My apartment sits on top of an electronics workshop. The business repairs stereos, speakers, electric pianos, etc. Before it was an apartment workshop, it was a movie rental place. And before it was a movie rental business, it was a movie theater. The apartment I live in is about 5 houses down from the house I grew up in, the previously haunted house that I wrote about in a lot of my other stories. And when I was a little girl, my friend and I were always afraid of going near that apartment, my home now. People would only stay there for about a year, and then they would move. Once there were 3 boys that lived there, and they were me and my friend's age, about 11 years old, and 2 of the boys were twins our age, and the other boy was a year older than us. The boys would always tell us stories about the apartment, and they would claim it to be haunted, and we girls would get super scared. That year around Halloween, the boys turned their basement into a haunted house. It was so scary. We entered it through the basement, and we would go around, and in the dark, the boys would lead us around, and there was an antique pop machine in the basement at the very back, and we all stopped and stared at it. And the boys said, "Where did this come from?" And then suddenly we heard a scratchy man's voice say, "Hey." Then we all ran, including the boys. The girls thought it was part of them trying to scare us, but the boys were even more scared than we were. And they claimed that they didn't plan that at all. Well, I say it could have been someone down there trying to scare us, or it may have been a ghost, but who knows? Fast forward 8 years until the winter of 2006, 2007, I was hired at this customer service call center about 30 minutes away from home. And this is far away for a city girl. We aren't used to traveling more than 15 minutes to get to somewhere in a car. I needed a job really bad at the time since I was tired of being a stay-at-home mom. It gets really boring and lonely. And it was the first day and I had orientation. I never thought that I would run into my old neighbor. This was a man that lived in the apartment for about a year, sometime when I was about 13 or so. He was a rock and roll kind of dude, and he was always sitting outside of the stoop, shirtless, and wore destroyed jeans, and he had long curly dark hair, and he bobbed his head when we walked. He was a really cool guy. This was a man that we called the Banana Car Man. He owned a banana yellow Cadillac. It was a make from the 70s, not sure what year. But he was so different now, though. He looked much older, and his face had accumulated quite a few wrinkles. He was going bald, and his swagger wasn't the same. He was just old now. We sat at the table during orientation, and he kept saying, "I know you from somewhere." Keep that in mind, the last time he saw me, I was a little girl. Now I was a young woman with a baby. I agreed that I also knew him from somewhere, and then it hit me. I said, "Don't you live on Millets in the old movie theater?" He said, "Yeah," and then asked if I was that gangster's little sister. My brother Salvador was a Mexican cholo thug gangster, whatever you want to call it. And I answered, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "Man, that place I lived in was haunted." He continued to tell me stories about the haunted apartment. He said one afternoon his son was taking a nap in his room, now my daughter's room, and he and his wife were sleeping in their room, now my room, and he and his wife woke up to a loud thump and his son crying. They ran to his room to find him on the completely other side of the room opposite from where his bed was, about 10 feet away from his bed. They asked him what happened, then they noticed that his wrist was broken. My God. They rushed him to the ER, and on the way, he asked his son what happened once again, and the son said that the man picked him up and then dropped him, and also told me that night he would hear heavy footsteps walking up and down the hall. The Banana Car Man then told me something that really froze me in terror. I think that last story froze me in terror, but what could get worse? He told me that the South Side rapist used to live in that same apartment years before he did. He really creeped me out with his story. Fast forward a year later, I was apartment hunting when my father mentioned that the apartment on top of the electronics store was for rent. I didn't find much interest in it because I thought that I could find something better. I'd totally forgotten about the Banana Car Man's stories. He begged me to at least take a look at it, and I agreed, and soon after I found myself in love with the apartment. And I said, "I'd absolutely love to live here." The place was beautiful. It's one of those don't judge a book by its cover kind of deals. It was so ugly from the outside, but as soon as you walked through the door, you were greeted with beautiful hardwood floors. The ceilings were high and the layout was perfect. The place was super big, and the rent was only $550 a month. Well, I moved in. My first night there, I was lying in bed thinking, and then I remembered that this is the same apartment that the Banana Car Man was telling me about. Well, I was so afraid, and I couldn't sleep for the first month that I lived there. Every night, I had a dream about a man with big boots, and he would rush through my bedroom door and grab me, and then I'd wake up, and this happened every night. After nothing ever really scary happened, I stopped thinking about all the stories that the man told me. A few months later, I was using the bathroom, and I was on the phone with my brother. He lives just down the street. It was about 11 p.m., and I was bored and had no one else to talk to. My daughter was at her father's that weekend, and we were just talking of random things and making jokes. Suddenly, I heard very heavy footsteps walk past the bathroom door. I whispered, "Oh my God, Salvador, I think someone just broke in. I hear a man's footsteps." Then he yelled that he was on his way and hung up. Not even 10 seconds later, I hear someone banging at my front door. I kept myself locked in the bathroom. I was a single young lady living at home. I then realized that my front door was still locked. I didn't know if I should go unlock it, and then I remembered the stories the man told me. So I thought I would rather take my chances and unlock the door before my brother knocked it down and due to a darn ghost. I poked my head out of the bathroom door, looked left and looked right, and then I took my chance and sprinted down the hallway, then down the steps to my front door. I said, "Never mind, there's no one here." He demanded to be let in so that he can make sure, and he barged in through the door, ran upstairs, checked everywhere. He looked in all the closets, under all the beds, behind the furniture, in the living room. He laughed and then called me an idiot, and then he left. I didn't want to tell him that I was scared of a potential haunting. I let him leave, and I sat in my living room confused and really afraid. I stayed up all night with all the lights on and the TV on high volume. Every night I sleep with the baby monitor on, and I have one of those baby monitors with the screen at the end of the monitor that picks up the video monitor in my daughter's room. The camera's facing her bed so that I can watch her sleep, and most nights I have to go check on her because of the sounds I hear on the monitor. It sounds like someone's breathing heavily. I know that is not my daughter because it sounds like a man's breathing. Sometimes I hear shuffling around in her room and when she isn't moving, and I watch her on the video monitor. It's very hard for me to go check since I'm very afraid, but I do for my baby's safety. And as soon as I go into her room, it is silent. Then I return to my room and proceed to listen, and it stays silent for a few minutes. And then it all starts again with the shuffling. I do not have bugs or rodents living in my apartment. I want to conclude that all of this can be explained logically, but more things happen. I'll be lying in my bed when I hear those things shifting around in my kitchen and dining room. I never really hear anything in the dining room or the living room. Items in the house go missing, and I'll find them later when I thought I had left them. My daughter is 2 years old, and she can talk really well, and currently she begs me not to close her door at night. And I asked her why. She said she's scared of the monster. I can't get much more than that, and I'm worried, but if there's something paranormal going on, it hasn't hurt us at all. I know my daughter's scared of something, though. I still hear the heavy footsteps, something I can see moving. Sometimes I can see something moving in the dark, but I'm not sure if it's my eyes playing tricks on me. One time I was sitting in my dining room reading a book, and then suddenly I heard someone yell really loud in my left ear, and it was a man's voice just yelling, "Ah!" It was a mad yell and not a scared yell. That scared me so much that I left my apartment right away. I'm really afraid to do my paranormal investigation in my home, play with a Ouija board, or do any kind of EVP research, and I'm afraid of finding out that something really is haunting our home. If you read my previous story, Neo, then you know I kind of believe that my cousin watches over me and my daughter, and I just don't know what this could be. This time, I really do need help and advice. Wow. And again, this story's old, so it's not like this person's probably even still in that same situation, but it's quite a long story. It's a good story, but it's a long one, you know. So quit busting my chops, huh? How we doing? We're doing it. Oh, jeez. It's already been 48 minutes. How is that even possible? Heather Steinoff. Good to see you, Heather. Thanks for coming in. Cha-Cha's here now. Digger Dog. Good to see you. Anybody else? I'm just looking at the names. Marilena, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Disco Duck. You are a real sweet man. Hey, Lewis, good to see you, brother. Great to see you. Blessings for Julia. Or Julie, blessings for you, Julie. Oh, you're welcome. Lewis was lurking. Great to see you, Lewis. Lewis has been around since, I think, the very first show I ever did. Lewis was there. He's always been a part of the crowd, hanging out and keeping me company. I remember starting out the show, there was like maybe 5 people in the chat room on TFR at that time. I was a new show, and, a lot of people are just like, new show, whatever. But Lewis was one of those guys that stuck around. You're a real lonely gal. Well, you're among friends now, Disco Duck. No need to be lonely no more. All right. Let me see. This is the one I just read. Yeah, so that was coming out of Missouri. All right, so this one is coming from California again. Going back to California. In my heart. Led Zeppelin. I can't remember all the words to that line, but I remember that melody. I definitely got my fill of the paranormal over the weekend. First, there was an incident in my family involving my Aunt Alicia. See, Aunt Alicia's couch buddy. And this set the stage for other members of the family to divulge their own personal paranormal encounters to me as they had come to visit for the weekend. having traveled from the same area in which my Aunt Alicia resides, about an hour and a half from me. The second and third incidents I'm submitting together here are the first-hand encounters of my cousin Elvis. Well, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. My cousin Elvis. That's awesome. And his brother-in-law, Diego. My cousin Elvis is currently a night shift janitor at a local high school near Bakersfield, California. Excuse me, I just burped, so I apologize for that. In which he also attended as a student several years ago. This high school reportedly was built over an old cemetery. Awesome place to build a high school. Jeez. It's like, what? You put in a daycare while you're at it and just make a whole deal. Oh. His paranormal encounters involved disembodied voices, auditorium seats flapping up and down on their own, and hearing movement in the empty hallways. After finishing his work in the high school gymnasium one night, he opened the door to walk through and set the security alarm and leave, and just as he opened the door, he heard someone shout, "Hey!" He replied, "Yeah, I'm in the gym." He thought it was his night shift partner, but when he went through the door and looked down the hallway, it was empty. He never did get a response. Well, he set the security alarm and left in a hurry to search for his partner. He found him on the other end of the school and swore he hadn't been playing any tricks on him. It couldn't have been anyone else, as there were security alarms throughout the school. And when in the auditorium, it was common for him to hear the seats, like movie theater seats, moving up and down on their own. And it's also very common for him to hear the sounds of students laughing and shuffling down the hallways. His night shift partner was terrified to find himself alone in the cafeteria when the microwave turned itself on. More frightening was that it had a knob to turn to set the time for the heating, not a button that could have turned itself on in an electrical glitch. So the janitors agree that the times when most of the paranormal occurrences happen are between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. My cousin is grateful his shift ends at 2. Good for you. One last tidbit of the story before I begin my second one. The street just across from the high school is said to be haunted by a hitchhiking female ghost. Local legend says that if you see this woman walking and don't stop and offer her a ride, she curses you, and chances are you'll get into a car accident very soon. The road has been the scene for many fatal accidents, including one which killed my childhood best friend's mother. Oh, that's too bad. Yikes. One last tidbit of the story before I begin the second one. Oh, no, I already read that. Derp. I scrolled up and I lost my place. Diego's incident happened on Mountain View Road near Lamont, California. Miles of citrus groves and grapevines border this road, and I've driven it on myself once or twice, and it's definitely creepy at night. The road itself has its own local history of paranormal encounters, and it's also the scene of many fatal accidents. Diego himself survived his terrible accident on this road a couple of years ago when he was T-boned twice in the same accident. How the hell do you get T-boned 2 times? Wow, that's horrible. Several years before, he was the passenger in a car being driven by his friend, and on their way home from Bakersfield late one night around 3 a.m., they found themselves traveling along Mountain View Road. Up ahead, they saw a white light hovering above the road. They weren't sure if it was stationary or if it was them who were approaching it, or if the light and the car were approaching each other. They'd slowed down before intercepting the light, and once they were about 100 feet from it, the light extinguished itself, and all that remained was a white lady enveloped in a cloud of light standing in the car's path. Completely terrified, his friend instantly sped up. Diego buried his head in his arms before the expected impact, and after a few moments and realizing they hadn't felt an impact, he looked up and over his shoulder to see, out of the rear view window, the white lady had not been run over. The white lady was, in fact, sitting in the back seat of the car, staring out into oblivion. Diego yelled at his friend, and his friend looked over his shoulder and saw her as well. Screaming, they both turned towards each other, then looked over their shoulders again. In an instant, she was nowhere to be found. I waited patiently for Diego to finish his story about the white lady. I didn't want to be rude and say, "You've got to be kidding, Diego. The white lady? She's so cliche." He was done with his story, and I waited for him to say just kidding, but he never did. And it was then that I realized that he wasn't kidding. He firmly believes in what he and his friend saw. I asked him what she looked like. I like the details, lots of them. Said she was an old woman with long white hair, a very pale face, and a long white dress. I asked him if he had been drinking, and he swore that he hadn't had anything to drink that night. Huh. That's creepy. I think there's so many of those legends all over the place. The legendary hitchhiking girls. I'm not sure what the story is, if there could be that many girls that need rides everywhere across America or not, but it seems like every region has one of those, and it's kind of like the old every bridge that is in water has these stories of giant fish down there where the divers will see and get terrified. Well, I'm not saying that means they're not real. I think that we may manifest them if we expect them, but I don't know. That's very strange. This next story, let me just look quick. I gotta look and see how we're doing here. 56. I'm going to read this last one. I don't know how long it is. Oh, it's pretty long. But I'm going to read it for you guys anyway, because I just don't feel like being done yet. You guys feel like me being done now? Or do you want me to continue this last story? I'm just waiting. If you guys are ready to call it a night, just let me know. But I can read this last story. No, I'm going to read it. It's from Virginia. It says, I've read a few stories on here about different people and their experiences with Ouija boards. Uh-huh. Thanks, guys. You guys are awesome. I'm continuing. I am. And so this one's obviously going to be about Ouija boards. Buckle up. It was 1995, and I was a freshman in college. I played volleyball and ended up becoming friends with the brother Bill, one of my teammates, and he and three of his friends lived in a quaint two-story house, which is about 5 miles from our school. Sarah, another one of the teammates, and I would go over to Bill's house and have a few drinks, watch movies, just hang out and get away from the dorms. It was on our second visit that Sarah was in the living room watching TV, and Bill and I were on the computer in his room. And as soon as you walked in the front door, the living room was on the left, and his bedroom door was on the right, and the stairs that led to the second floor were straight ahead. We were the only three in that house at the time, and all of a sudden it sounded like someone came running down the stairs. I looked out of Bill's open door and saw Sarah sitting on the sofa looking towards the stairs. I told him that I thought we were the only three here, and his reply was, "We are." I got up and Sarah and I checked every room, and sure enough, no one else was in the house. Bill explained to me that he had a couple of ghosts that also lived in the house, and things of that nature happen all the time, and he and his roommates just ignored it. I was ready to leave at that point, and a week or so later, Sarah got the bright idea to take a Ouija board over there. These are always where these stories go south. And see if we could communicate with whatever was there. I was not game for that, but with a little prodding and some liquid courage, I ended up going along for the ride. This time we brought 3 other friends with us over to Bill's house. One of the girls, Lindsay, had told us how she was born with a veil over her face and that she could see and sense spirits. That's an old legend that children are born with a veil over their face. That means they'll be gifted psychically, and maybe it's true, I don't know. But it is an old wives' tale for sure. The 6 of us went upstairs to the bedroom on the right because Bill told us that this was the room that had the most activity in it. The stereo would cut itself on and off, and the lights would cut themselves on and off, and footsteps and whispers were heard in this room as well. Lindsay said a prayer to get us started, and I chose to sit in the circle around the board, but not to put my hand on the board or the planchette. And Bill was sitting behind me, and instead of using the overhead light, we chose to use a tall lamp for our lighting in the room. From the beginning, Lindsay kept taking her hand and brushing the back of her hair down. I noticed this, but didn't say anything about it. Whenever someone would ask a question, I would lean back and whisper the answer to Bill. Not loud enough for the others to hear, but quietly in his ear. About 95% of the time, my answer to him was correct. I told him what her name was, where she was born and how she died, and in what year this took place. One of the other people asked her why she was still in the house, and halfway through the answer, the light went out. We all let out a little scream, and Bill quickly cut the overhead light on. I'm not used to that term, cutting the lights on. I've heard it before. It's just an odd one to me. The lamp had been sitting directly behind Bill, not only had cut off, but had been unplugged from the wall. I know for a fact it wasn't him because I was scared from the very beginning and made him put both of his arms around me to hold me. At that point, Lindsay said something very fast in a language that I did not understand. And she then told us that she had to go because she had an exam to study for. Yeah, I'll bet she did. When we got back to the dorm, Lindsay came into our room and asked her what was wrong. We knew she didn't have an exam, and she told us that she got a very uneasy feeling when the light went out. She also told us that from the very beginning, she felt like someone was playing with her hair, and that was the reason she kept brushing her hair down. I went back over there one more time after the Ouija board incident and the running down the steps by an unseen person, the footsteps in the room, pictures falling off the walls. All of this was enough for me, and that was the last time I ever stepped foot in that house. Bill and his roommates moved out a few months later, and none of them would tell us why. I know that spirits will tell you things on a Ouija board to gain your trust, and a lot of them will lie. The question that I have is, how would I know the answers to most of the questions that were asked? I wasn't even touching the planchette. And can spirits read minds? Did I inadvertently have caused the piece to move? Thanks for reading, and always your comments are welcome. So I don't know. I mean, I wonder why people bother asking questions that they already know the answer to. First of all, the person isn't making the planchette move. No, I don't believe that for a moment. But yes, there is telepathy. I believe very, very much that spirits are telepathic. They are energetic, after all. And words are thoughts. We have thoughts first, and then we create words with our minds and the mechanics of our body to create a vibration into the air, which will carry to another person, which will interpret those vibrations as information. Spirits don't have to go through all that filter process. They are energy. They can perceive that thought energy before it's manifested into words, or they may have foreknowledge of things as well. So I just think this person was somehow clued into that exchange or that telepathy, and is probably sensitive. So anyway, I don't know what you guys think, but I hope you enjoyed this journey through the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I hope you've been sufficiently entertained so that you might sleep the rest of the night away and have just wonderful dreams. But thank you all for being here, all 71 of you. That's just amazing. I appreciate it a lot. Stick Indians. But please continue to share the word about the Paranormal Portal. Tell people you know about it, and hopefully they'll come check it out as well. But I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow is Wednesday. Don will be joining me. And on this Friday, remember that Deb Varner will be here doing readings to callers of the show. She is an amazing psychic and has been a long time friend of the show. Has come on dozens and dozens of times and done these phenomenal reading sessions for people. It's absolutely amazing. I hope you guys will come and take advantage of that. That's Friday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can catch it right here on YouTube, and it'll be happening this Friday. But 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, there is a Paranormal Portal happening live here on YouTube. So I hope you guys will check it out, and definitely check out the podcast if you haven't already. Again, iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, Chatbox, the list goes on and on and on. Wherever you're finding all your other podcasts, just do a search for Paranormal Portal, and we should be there. But you guys take care. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night, and sweet dreams.